So how did that then inform the direction your professional life took, and how does it show up for you? The wisdom that you've gained from the work that you've done internally, how does that show up in your life? I love that idea that you have, through your devotion to your meditation practice, you have shifted your legacy for your kids. As a parent, what more could you want? We tend to think of making sure our kids, I don't have kids, but making sure that the kids are set up financially, that are taken care of, that they can have the education that they want, that they are comfortable and safe and protected. But what about this other legacy that we're passing on, the legacy of the way we relate to the world and the amount of love we're able to offer in a given moment, and the amount of baggage that we're dumping on the younger generation without realizing it, and the value of that. I thank you for speaking to that.
Well, to me, that's heartwarming, and that's what I am so grateful for, because my career, of course, is important, but my family is different. On the career side, I was doing organizational consulting for a long time. I've got an MBA, which I picked up when we were living in Europe. I've moved around, and I did a lot of very solid organizational design, change management projects, very objective kind of work, relatively impersonal, very effective. I began to want and feel I was capable of working with people more one-on-one and touching individual lives, which in a way is scarier than writing a big consulting report. So I certainly think that the meditation gave me the capability to move towards one-on-one work, whether that's executive coaching, which I now do formally, took training on, brought my mindfulness skills into the training and into how I turn up with clients. Of course, then wrote a book on unified mindfulness, combining unified mindfulness with coaching techniques, and really trying to take what can be a fairly rich and sometimes dense approach and make it doable for people. There's not one executive I know who doesn't need a little bit more self-awareness, or doesn't need a little bit more emotional resilience, or doesn't need to know how to focus under pressure, or how to deal with information overload. So being able to weave this into people's lives in a way that is, sometimes they don't know they're getting a mindfulness training, but they know they're building their internal capacities. So at this stage, it's more like touching lives individually and seeing the ripple effect that way.
So it sounds like both baked into how you approach your client work. In other words, just by the way you show up in the world through the practice that you've done, you see the influence of your practice. And maybe, does it make you more, would you say, available to clients, or more on top of things? What are some examples of?
Well, I think certainly you're more present. There is way less of the internal voice in your head. So you are actually doing this thing called active listening, because you're not paying attention to the own voice in your head. You're able to put the other person in the foreground and leave all your internal worries in the background. When you hear difficult things, your own emotional reactions are not clouding your judgment. You're able to be much more perceptive about what's going on. And in my own case, I would say more daring statements. I mean, there's a fine line in executive coaching between support and challenge. And that balance point is, in fact, where you meet another individual. And so do I push, do I support? And being able to do that in the moment with just that right degree of judgment is what helps people shift.